When we look back at the challenges from last year, our
How could you
commitment to
not
quality
know?
ensured
Jordan
this was our
rounded on
best
Daniel,
quarter
his
yet.
face flushed with wine
Your
and
behavior
fury.
tonight is completely
4 years
unacceptable.
married,
You
and
have
you didn't
ruined
know
this
your wife
dinner.
runs a
Oh,
multi-million
look at her.
dollar
She's gonna
company?
cry like a child.
Daniel
How
stood
pathetic.
frozen, one
I can't
hand
believe
still
you're doing
extended
this. Just
toward the door
leave.
Kayla had walked
Fine.
through.
I don't
She
want to be
said
here
she
anyway.
did consulting work. I thought it was part-time. Small clients. I didn't what? Didn't ask? Didn't care? Amanda's voice was shrill. She's a Forbes-listed CEO, Daniel. There are articles about her. Everyone calm down. Richard's command came out more like a plea. His hands shook as he gripped the edge of the table. We need to think rationally about this. Rationally? Donna's voice broke through her tears. Our daughter-in-law has been secretly running our company for 18 months. What's rational about any of this? Marcus Thompson sat with his head in his hands, looking like he might be sick. We're finished. If she pulls the contract, we can't make payroll in 60 days, maybe less. She won't pull it. But Richard's voice lacked conviction. She's family. She wouldn't destroy... Wouldn't she? Jordan was pacing now, phone in hand, scrolling frantically. Look at this. She spoke at the International Logistics Conference last spring, the keynote address. Innovative solutions in supply chain disruption. There are photos. She's on panels. She's quoted in industry magazines. He looked up, face pale. She's famous. In her field, she's actually famous, and none of us knew. Because we didn't look, Daniel said quietly. Because we didn't want to know. The truth of it settled over the room like ash. Amanda sank into her chair, staring at her phone. Forbes called her the quiet powerhouse reshaping regional logistics. They quoted her revenue growth, 30% year over year. Her client retention rate is 96%. She laughed, but it sounded broken. I told her she was probably on social media when she checked her phone. She was probably solving a 6-figure crisis while I babbled about charity galas. Why didn't you tell us? Richard turned on Marcus. You knew. You've been negotiating with her for months. Why didn't you say something? Marcus looked up, and his expression was a mixture of exhaustion and anger. I tried. Every board meeting for the past year, I told you we were in trouble. I told you we needed to restructure. I told you our logistics costs were miraculously low, and we needed to understand why. You kept saying, we're fine, we'll land new clients. His voice rose. We weren't landing clients, Richard. Kayla was giving us clients. What? Jordan's head snapped up. The Patterson account you're so proud of closing last quarter? That came through an Apex connection. Kayla made the introduction. The Reynolds deal that Amanda keeps posting about on Facebook? Same thing. Kayla connected us with their procurement director at a conference. Marcus pulled out his phone, scrolling through emails. I have the paper trail. Half our wins in the past year came through Apex contacts. She's been propping us up from every angle. The silence that followed was suffocating. Oh, God, Donna whispered. Last year at the club, Margaret Henderson mentioned her husband was working with a brilliant young CEO named Bennett. I changed the subject. I didn't want to hear about it. Why? Daniel asked, his voice hollow. Donna's face crumpled. Because if Kayla was successful, really successful, it meant I was wrong. About everything. About women in business. About my own choices. She looked at Richard with something like accusation. About giving up my career 40 years ago because you said a wife's place was supporting her husband. Richard opened his mouth, but no words came out. I saw her business card once, Donna continued, tears streaming. In her purse, CEO, it said. I saw it and I put it back, and I never mentioned it because I didn't want it to be true. Jesus Christ, Jordan breathed. We're all complicit. Amanda stood abruptly. I need air. She fled toward the back patio. The remaining family members sat in the wreckage of Thanksgiving dinner, plates of cold turkey and congealed gravy forgotten, the weight of their collective blindness crushing down on them. Daniel's phone buzzed. A text from Kayla. Don't come home tonight. I need space. Stay with Jordan or get a hotel. He stared at the message until his vision blurred. Kayla made it 3 miles before she had to pull over. She found a scenic overlook, one of those roadside stops with a view of the Connecticut River Valley, empty on Thanksgiving evening, and parked. For a long moment, she just sat there, hands on the wheel, breathing carefully through the tightness in her chest. Then she pulled out her phone and called her sister. Sarah answered on the first ring. "Kay, how's dinner with the in-laws from hell?" Kayla laughed, and it turned into a sob halfway through. "Oh no, oh Kay, what happened?" "I told them." The words came out strangled. "I finally told them everything." "About Apex? About the contract?" "All of it. Sarah, it was worse than I imagined. They didn't believe me at first. Donna literally fainted. Jordan looked like I'd slapped him. And Daniel," her voice broke. "Daniel just sat there. 4 years together, and he didn't even know what I did for a living." "Not really." She could hear Sarah moving, probably stepping away from their family Thanksgiving. "Where are you right now?" "Overlook off Route 9. I just needed to stop, to breathe." "Do you want me to come get you?" "No, I need you to tell me I'm not crazy. Tell me I didn't imagine being dismissed all these years." "You're not crazy." Sarah's voice was fierce. "Kay, I've watched you swallow their condescension for 3 years. I've listened to you cry after family dinners because Donna changed the subject every time you mentioned work. You called me at 2 in the morning last year after you landed the Henderson contract, remember? You were crying because you had no one else to tell who would understand what a big deal it was." Kayla remembered. She'd closed an $8 million deal and celebrated alone in her office because Daniel was asleep and wouldn't have understood the significance anyway. "I built something extraordinary," she whispered, "and I've been hiding it like it was shameful." "Not hiding, protecting. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes." Sarah's voice softened. "You protected your company from being dismissed the way you were, from being taken over or minimized. You kept it separate so it could be yours, fully yours, without their interference or judgment. That's not shame. That's self-preservation." So, a memory surfaced. 2 years ago, Daniel mentioning casually that his father was looking to acquire a regional logistics company. Kayla had felt a chill of recognition. The company Richard was targeting was one of her competitors. She'd never told Daniel that his father had tried, unknowingly, to take over part of her market share. "Sarah, I don't know what to do now. About the company? About Daniel? About any of it." "What do you want to do?" Kayla watched the sun setting over the valley, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. "I want Daniel to fight for me. I want him to go back into that house and tell his father that his wife is brilliant and successful and he's proud of her. I want him to choose me over their approval for once." "Has he ever done that before?" "No." "Then why would he start now?" The question hurt because Kayla didn't have an answer. "What about the business decision?" Sarah asked. "Are you really going to pull the contract?" "I don't know. 240 people work at Lewis Manufacturing. Factory workers, office staff, families depending on those paychecks. It's not their fault Richard is a sexist dinosaur." "But it's not your responsibility to save them either." "Isn't it? If I'm the only one who can, doesn't that make it my responsibility?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Kay, you can't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm, especially people who've been treating you like you're invisible." "I know, Kayla pressed her palm against her eyes, fighting back tears. "I'm so tired, Sarah. I'm tired of being strong. I'm tired of being dismissed. I'm tired of being both too much and not enough at the same time." "Then stop carrying all of this alone. Let them fail if they're going to fail. Let Daniel step up or don't let him back in. You don't owe anyone your competence at the cost of your dignity." After they hung up, Kayla sat in the growing darkness, watching lights flicker on in the valley below. Each light was a home, a family, probably gathering for Thanksgiving. Some happy, some dysfunctional, all of them complicated. She thought about the spreadsheets waiting in her email, the Lewis Manufacturing files Jennifer had prepared, the decision that had to be made by Monday. She thought about Daniel, probably still at his parents' house, finally having the conversations they should have had years ago. She thought about the CEO chair in her home office, the awards on the wall that no one had ever seen, the life she'd built in the shadows of her marriage. Then Kayla Bennett Lewis dried her eyes, started her car, and drove home to the house she might soon be living in alone. Daniel didn't come home that night, or the next day. By Sunday evening, Kayla had compiled the complete Lewis manufacturing file, reviewed every contract clause, and analyzed 3 different scenarios for Monday's meeting with her executive team. She was on her 3rd cup of coffee when she heard a key in the lock. Daniel looked terrible. 2 days of stubble, rumpled clothes, eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep or crying or both. He stood in the doorway of her office, the office he'd walked past hundreds of times without really seeing, and stared at the walls. The framed Forbes profile, the industry awards, the photo of her receiving the Northeast Logistics Innovation Prize last spring, the Wall Street Journal article about Apex's expansion into pharmaceutical supply chains. "I've never really looked in here," he said quietly. "I mean, I've been in here, but I never looked." "I know." He moved closer, reading the plaques, the certificates, the evidence of a career he'd been married to but never acknowledged. The Wharton MBA. "I didn't know you went to Wharton. You never asked where I got my degree. You assumed it was some online program." Daniel flinched but didn't deny it. He picked up her CEO nameplate, the one that sat on her desk every day. "Kayla R. Bennett. What does the R stand for?" "Rose, after my grandmother." "I didn't know that either." He set it down carefully. "I don't know anything, do I?" "Not really." Kayla waited. She'd spent 3 years explaining herself in small pieces, trying to be heard. She was done initiating those conversations. "I need to tell you something," Daniel said, still not looking at her. "And I need you to let me finish before you respond." She nodded. "I knew you were successful. Not the extent of it, but I knew. Your company was growing. You were stressed sometimes, working late, getting important calls. And He finally turned to face her. "I think part of me didn't want to know more." "Why?" "Because my whole life I've been Jordan's younger brother, Dad's disappointment. The Lewis son who went into accounting instead of manufacturing, who never quite measured up." His voice cracked. "And then I married you, and you were brilliant and beautiful and ambitious, and I needed you to be smaller than you were, so I could feel bigger." The honesty of it punched through Kayla's anger, leaving something rawer beneath. "I told myself I was supportive," Daniel continued, "that I was a good husband because I let you work, but I never celebrated your wins, never asked detailed questions, never went to any of your company events. I kept you small because it made me feel adequate. And now? Now I'm terrified and amazed and so fucking proud I can barely breathe." He took a step closer. "But I'm also scared, Kayla. Scared that I can't unlearn a lifetime of conditioning. Scared that my ego can't handle being Mr. Kayla Bennett at parties. Scared that I'll fail you again." "Are you asking if I can live with that uncertainty?" "I'm saying I don't know if I can be the husband you deserve, but I want to try. God, I want to try." Kayla looked at this man she'd loved, this man who'd let her be invisible, this man who was finally, painfully, seeing her. "Can you live with it?" she asked. "With me being more successful? With your friends knowing? With the inevitable comments at parties about how I earn more, run a bigger company, have more professional recognition?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "I want to say yes, but I don't know if I can, and I hate myself for it." The admission hung between them, honest and ugly and real. "Then here's what happens," Kayla said. "I'm making my business decision tomorrow. Whatever I decide about your family's company is purely professional, separate from us." "And us?" "I don't know yet." She stood, moving to the window. "I need you to figure out what kind of husband you want to be, and I need to figure out if I still want to be your wife." "Kayla, I love you, Daniel, but I don't know if love is enough when one person needs the other to be smaller than they are. You need to decide if you can handle me at my actual size, not the version you needed me to be." He moved behind her, not touching, but close enough that she could feel his presence. Where do I start? Therapy. Individual therapy to figure out your ego issues, then maybe couples therapy if we both decide there's something worth saving. Okay, I'll call someone tomorrow. And Daniel? She turned to face him. You need to tell your family, explicitly, that you're proud of me, that what they did was wrong, that you won't tolerate them dismissing me ever again. Not in small ways, not in any ways. I will, I promise. Don't promise. Just do it. He nodded, looking young and lost and scared. Should I stay tonight? No, I need more time. Get a hotel or stay with Jordan. I'll let you know when I'm ready to talk again. After he left, Kayla returned to her computer, to the Lewis manufacturing files, to the decision that would affect 240 lives and the future of a 40-year-old company. But now, she had clarity. Whatever she decided, it would be for the right reasons. Not to save a marriage that might already be over. Not to earn the approval of people who'd never valued her. She would decide as CEO Kayla Bennett. And CEO Kayla Bennett made decisions based on data, strategy, and the long-term good of her company. The Lewis family would just have to live with the consequences. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. Kayla was in her Apex Logistics conference room by 7, dressed in her favorite Navy power suit, hair pulled back. Every inch the CEO that Forbes had profiled. Her executive team assembled at 7:30. David Morrison, her COO, and the man who'd helped her build Apex from a 2-person operation. Laura Sullivan, their sharp-eyed CFO. Jennifer Rodriguez, who'd been with her since the beginning, and 2 VPs she'd personally recruited from larger firms. Let's talk about Lewis Manufacturing, Kayla said, pulling up the presentation Jennifer had prepared. No emotion, just facts. Laura started. Current contract value, $18.4 million annually. Market rate for the services we provide, approximately $31 million. We're subsidizing them $12.6 million per year. That's money we could be making elsewhere. David clicked to the next slide. Payment history, 73 days overdue on current invoice. Pattern of increasing delays over the past 6 months. This suggests cash flow crisis, not administrative oversight. Jennifer added, communications analysis, 147 phone calls, 218 emails, mostly reactive crisis management. 0 proactive strategic planning from their side. They're drowning and using us as a life raft. Client stability? Kayla asked. Terrible, Laura said bluntly. Henderson's gone. That's 30% of their revenue. We've confirmed 4 other major clients in active negotiations to leave. If even 2 of those terminate, Lewis Manufacturing is insolvent. Recommendation? The room was quiet for a moment. Then David spoke. Terminate. Cut our losses. We have 3 potential clients ready to sign contracts that would fill the capacity Lewis is using. Profitable clients. Clients who pay on time. Agreed, Laura said. From a pure business standpoint, we walk away. Jennifer looked conflicted. But there are 240 employees. Most of them have been there for years. What happens to them? Not our responsibility, David said, not unkindly. Kayla didn't mismanage that company. She tried to save it. They don't get to keep exploiting her goodwill just because she's family. Kayla stared at the numbers on the screen. Numbers that told a story of decline, mismanagement, and inevitable failure. What if we don't terminate? She asked. What if we restructure? What kind of restructuring? Laura leaned forward, interested. Acquisition. Apex acquires Lewis Manufacturing through structured bankruptcy. We buy the assets, not the debt. Bring in professional management, keep the workforce, modernize operations, rebrand. David whistled low. That's actually interesting. Vertical integration. We'd control the entire supply chain from manufacturing to delivery. Can we afford it? Jennifer asked. Laura was already calculating. If we buy the assets in bankruptcy, we're looking at maybe $15,000 to $20 million. We'd need to invest another $5 to $10 million in equipment updates and operational improvements. It's doable, but it's risky. Everything is risky, Kayla said. The question is whether the risk is worth the potential return. There's one other factor, Laura said slowly. I did some deeper digging over the weekend. Lewis Manufacturing has a pending lawsuit, sexual harassment case. Former employee named Jessica Martinez. Trial starts in 6 weeks. Kayla's blood went cold. How bad? If they lose, judgment could be $6.8 million. Combined with their existing debt, they'd be bankrupt immediately, regardless of what we do. Jesus, David muttered. Who's the defendant? Kayla asked, though she already knew the answer. Richard Lewis. He fired her 6 months into her pregnancy. The complaint alleges he made repeated comments about her unreliability and divided loyalties after she announced she was expecting. Her lawyer is calling it textbook pregnancy discrimination. The irony was almost too perfect. The man who'd said women didn't belong in business was being sued for discriminating against a woman. The company Kayla had been propping up had been actively pushing women out. This changes things, Jennifer said quietly. Does it? Kayla looked at her team. What's our move here? Before anyone could answer, Jennifer's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and her eyes widened. It's Richard Lewis. He's here, in our lobby. He's been waiting since we opened at 7. He's asking to speak with you alone. The room fell silent. What do you want to do, boss? David asked. Kayla thought about Richard Lewis, patriarch of his family. Man who'd built a company on principles he claimed were timeless, sitting in her lobby like a supplicant. Send him in, she said. The rest of you take 15. I'll let you know what he wants. As her team filed out, Kayla stood at the window of her conference room, looking out over the Hartford skyline. She'd built this, these offices, this team, this reputation. She'd built it while her in-laws assumed she was home rearranging furniture. The door opened behind her. Thank you for seeing me, Richard said. Kayla turned. He looked like he'd aged a decade since Thursday. His suit was rumpled, his face drawn, his hands shaking slightly as he clutched a folder. You have 15 minutes, she said. Richard Lewis had never been a small man, but he seemed diminished in Kayla's conference room. He sat across from her, the morning sun harsh on his face, revealing every line of stress and sleepless night. I came to apologize, he started, and to tell you the truth. The whole truth. I'm listening. He opened the folder with trembling hands. My father was a factory worker, laid off at 58, replaced by younger men willing to work cheaper. He died 5 years later, broke, bitter, convinced he'd wasted his life. I was 17 when we buried him. Kayla remained silent, letting him continue. I built Lewis Manufacturing to prove something, to prove my father mattered, to prove our family mattered. That we weren't disposable. Richard's voice cracked. Somewhere along the way, I became exactly the kind of man who fired him. Rigid, threatened by change, clinging to the past because the future terrified me. That doesn't excuse your sexism. No, it doesn't. He met her eyes. But maybe it explains it. My mother gave up everything to support my father. Her dreams, her education, her ambitions. I thought that's what women did. What they should do. I was wrong. Why are you here, Richard? To ask you to save them. Not me. I know I deserve to lose everything. But those 240 employees, they don't deserve to lose their jobs because of my pride. Your company is being sued for pregnancy discrimination. Richard closed his eyes. Jessica Martinez. Yes. Did you fire her because she was pregnant? The silence stretched long enough to be an answer. She was a good employee before, Richard finally said. Reliable, competent. But after she told me about the pregnancy, all I could see was the liability, the maternity leave. The distraction. I told myself it was about performance, but... He looked up and Kayla saw real shame there. I was wrong. I punished her for becoming a mother. You did to her what your family did to me. Dismissed her competence because of her gender. Yes. Kayla stood, pacing to the window. I could let your company fail, buy the assets for pennies in bankruptcy, walk away from all of this. You could. You'd be justified. But... Richard stood too, pulling papers from his folder. But I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to make this right. I'll settle the lawsuit, Full amount, no negotiation. I'll implement whatever policies you require. I'll step down as CEO. I'll hand the company to you. Complete control. Kayla turned, genuinely surprised. What? You're the only one who can fix it. I see that now. My ego, my pride, my outdated beliefs, they've nearly destroyed everything my father and I built. If there's any chance of saving those jobs, it's with you in charge. Why would I want your company? Because despite everything, I think you believe in second chances. You gave us one for 18 months without us even knowing. Maybe, his voice dropped, maybe you'd consider one more. Kayla studied him. This broken man, this humbled patriarch, this father-in-law who'd dismissed her for 3 years. Part of her wanted to tell him no, wanted to watch his empire crumble, wanted the satisfaction of his complete defeat. But she thought about the 240 employees, about Jessica Martinez, who deserved justice, about the possibility of building something better from the ashes. I'm not making any promises, she said finally, but I'll consider a restructuring plan, if and only if you agree to my terms. Anything. Don't say that yet, you haven't heard them. She returned to the table, pulling up a document on her laptop. First, you settle with Jessica Martinez, not just the lawsuit. You give her a job. Here, at Apex, with better pay and benefits than she had at Lewis. You apologize publicly. Richard nodded. Agreed. Second, if I acquire Lewis Manufacturing, you step down as CEO. You can keep a chairman emeritus title if you need it for your ego, but you have zero operational authority. I run the company. Agreed. Third, Marcus Thompson gets promoted to CFO with equity stake. Jordan stays as VP of operations, but he reports directly to me. New policies across the board, parental leave, anti-discrimination, transparent promotion criteria. Any employee, male or female, can take 12 weeks paid leave for a new child. Yes, all of it. Fourth, the Lewis family retains 30% equity non-controlling. Apex holds 70%. You'll make money if the company succeeds, but you won't control it. Richard's hands shook, but he nodded. What's the fifth condition? You testify in the harassment lawsuit on Jessica's behalf. You admit under oath that you fired her because she was pregnant. You don't fight it, you own it. The color drained from Richard's face. That could destroy my reputation. You've already destroyed it, Kayla said bluntly. This is your chance to rebuild it as something honest. You can be remembered as the man who discriminated against women or the man who admitted his mistakes and worked to change. Your choice. Richard sat down heavily. When he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. I'll do it. All of it. Thank you, Kayla. Thank you for being bigger than I ever was. Don't thank me. Thank those 240 employees who deserve better leadership. I'm doing this for them. After Richard left, Kayla called her team back in. We're moving forward with the acquisition, she announced, with significant conditions. Jennifer, I want you to reach out to Jessica Martinez's lawyer. We're offering her a position here. David, start the bankruptcy paperwork. Laura, structure the deal. We close in 60 days. You're really doing this, David said, something like admiration in his voice. I'm really doing this. Kayla looked at the faces of her team, people she trusted, people who'd built Apex alongside her. But not as charity. We're going to turn Lewis Manufacturing into a profit center, modernize it, make it a model for what manufacturing can be in the 21st century. Richard Lewis built it on outdated principles. We're rebuilding it on competence. And your marriage? Jennifer asked quietly. That, Kayla said, is a separate negotiation. 1 week later, the Lewis family sat in Apex Logistics' main conference room like defendants awaiting sentencing. Kayla had deliberately chosen this space, her territory, not theirs. The room was sleek and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Hartford's skyline. On the walls hung framed awards and photos from industry conferences. In every image, Kayla Bennett commanded the room, shook hands with Fortune 500 CEOs, accepted recognition for innovation and leadership. Richard sat at the far end of the table, diminished in his rumpled suit. Donna beside him, hands folded in her lap, eyes red from crying. Jordan fidgeted with his phone, while Amanda stared at the table. Daniel occupied the chair closest to the door, as if planning his escape. David Morrison sat at Kayla's right hand, their lawyers flanking them. The power dynamic couldn't be clearer. "Thank you for coming," Kayla began, her voice professionally neutral. "I've asked you here to discuss the future of Lewis Manufacturing." She pulled up a presentation, and the first slide appeared on the screen behind her. Proposed acquisition structure, Lewis Apex Manufacturing, LLC. Apex Logistics Solutions will acquire Lewis Manufacturing through structured bankruptcy proceedings. Here are the terms. She clicked through slides, each one landing like a hammer blow. Richard Lewis steps down as CEO, retains non-voting chairman emeritus position. Salary, $120,000 annually. No operational authority. Richard nodded, jaw tight. Marcus Thompson promoted to CFO with 5% equity stake. Jordan Lewis remains VP of Operations, reports directly to me. Salary restructured based on performance metrics. Jordan's head snapped up. Performance metrics? You'll earn your position, Kayla said coolly, like everyone else. She continued through the terms. New employee policies, expanded benefits, modernized equipment, restructured management. With each slide, she was systematically dismantling and rebuilding the company Richard had spent 40 years constructing. The Lewis family retains 30% equity, non-controlling. Apex holds 70%. Any objections? Silence. "There's one more condition," Kayla said. "The Jessica Martinez settlement." She nodded to David, who pulled up another slide. A photo of a young woman appeared. Latina, early 30s, professional headshot. Jessica Martinez, former logistics coordinator at Lewis Manufacturing, fired 6 months into her pregnancy. She's been unemployed for 8 months, struggling with medical bills for her daughter's heart condition. Her lawsuit goes to trial in 4 weeks. Richard's hands were shaking. "We're offering Ms. Martinez a position here at Apex. Senior Logistics Coordinator, $85,000 annually, full benefits including paid parental leave. The settlement includes a public apology from Richard Lewis and implementation of comprehensive anti-discrimination policies at Lewis Apex Manufacturing." "How much?" Jordan asked. "The monetary settlement is sealed per Ms. Martinez's request, but I'm paying half personally. Lewis Manufacturing's insurance covers the rest." Kayla looked at Richard. "And you will testify at deposition that you terminated her employment due to her pregnancy. No hedging, no lawyer spin." "The truth. That will destroy any credibility I have left," Richard said hoarsely. "You don't have credibility left," Kayla replied. "But you can build integrity. There's a difference." Donna spoke for the first time, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you doing this? After everything we did to you?" Kayla considered the question. "Not for you. For the 240 employees who did nothing wrong. For Jessica Martinez, who deserves justice. And honestly," she looked at each of them in turn, "because I'm good at this. Turning around failing companies. It's what I do. And the bonus of humiliating us?" Amanda's voice was bitter. Kayla's eyes went cold. "Amanda, if I wanted to humiliate you, I'd have let the company fail and bought the assets for pennies at auction. This is mercy. Don't mistake it for weakness." The rebuke landed. Amanda shrank back in her chair. "Do we have an agreement?" Kayla asked. Richard looked at his family. His wife crying silently, his son defeated, his daughter-in-law resentful, his younger son nowhere near his eyes. Then he looked at Kayla, at the woman he'd dismissed as an unemployed housewife, now holding his legacy in her capable hands. "Yes," he said, "we agree." The lawyers pushed documents across the table. One by one, the Lewis family signed away control of their company. Each signature was a small surrender, an acknowledgement of failure, a transfer of power. When it was done, Richard stood
I can't
slowly,
believe you're doing this. Just
offering his
leave.
hand across the
Fine.
table. "Thank you,"
I don't want to be here
he
anyway.
said, voice breaking. "And I'm sorry. I truly am." Kayla shook his hand, her grip firm. "Apology noted. Now let's save this company." After they left, David turned to her. "How are you feeling?" "Ask me in 3 months," Kayla said, staring at the signed contracts. "When we see if they can actually change." The transformation of Lewis Manufacturing, now Lewis Apex Manufacturing, happened faster than anyone expected. Kayla moved decisively. New equipment arrived within weeks. She brought in consultants to audit every process, identify inefficiencies, root out waste. Workers who'd been doing things the way we've always done them for decades suddenly had to justify their methods or learn new ones. Some resisted, some left, but most, grateful to still have jobs, adapted. Marcus Thompson flourished in his new role as CFO. With actual authority and Kayla's backing, he implemented financial controls that Richard had dismissed as unnecessary paperwork. Within 6 weeks, they'd identified $2.3 million in annual waste. Within 10 weeks, they'd renegotiated supplier contracts and saved another $1.1 million. Jordan surprised everyone, including himself. "I was pretending," he admitted to Kayla during a monthly review meeting. "For years, I was pretending to know what I was doing. Dad never wanted to hear that I was struggling, so I just faked it." "And now?" Kayla asked. "Now I have structure, clear metrics, actual training." He looked almost happy. "I'm good at operations, Kayla. I just needed someone to teach me how to do it right." She promoted him to COO within 3 months. Amanda's transformation was slower, more painful. 2 months after the acquisition, she appeared at Kayla's office unannounced. "I need help," she said, standing in the doorway like a supplicant. "I want to go back to work. I miss it. But I've been out for 6 years and I don't know how to start." Kayla could have turned her away, could have savored the reversal, the woman who'd mocked her career now begging for help. Instead, she said, "Sit down, let's talk." She spent an hour reviewing Amanda's resume, identifying transferable skills, suggesting networking strategies. She made 3 phone calls to contacts in marketing firms. Within a week, Amanda had 2 interviews. "Why are you helping me?" Amanda asked as she was leaving. "Because we're not enemies," Kayla said simply. "We never were. You were just scared that my success meant your choices were wrong. They weren't. But you get to make different choices now." Donna's arc was the most unexpected. She started small, volunteering in Apex's community outreach program, helping small businesses with logistics planning, but her natural charisma and intelligence, suppressed for 40 years, emerged like a plant finally given sunlight. By month 2, she'd started her own consulting practice, Second Chapter Consulting, helping women over 50 return to the workforce or start businesses. "I wasted 40 years," she told Kayla over coffee one morning. "I'm not wasting any more." "You didn't waste them," Kayla said gently. "You did what you thought was right. You're just choosing differently now." "Because you showed me I could." Donna's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Kayla, for everything. I see now what I couldn't see before. I wasn't just dismissing you. I was dismissing every woman, including myself." Jessica Martinez started at Apex in week 3. Kayla paired her with Jennifer Rodriguez as mentor, and within a month, Jessica was coordinating logistics for 3 major accounts. Her daughter's medical bills, previously crushing, were covered by Apex's insurance. When Richard came to apologize, privately, awkwardly, with genuine remorse, Jessica listened. "I don't forgive you," she said. "Not yet, but I appreciate the apology, and I'm grateful to Mrs. Bennett for giving me a chance to rebuild." Richard nodded, accepting the boundary. "If there's anything I can do—" "There is," Jessica said. "Make sure no other woman at your company ever experiences what I did. Make sure the policies Mrs. Bennett implemented actually get followed." "I will. I promise." By month 3, Lewis Apex Manufacturing posted its first profit in 2 years. Small, just $400,000, but profit nonetheless. Kayla sent a company-wide email celebrating the achievement and thanking every employee by name. The thank you note from the factory floor, signed by 180 workers, made her cry in her office. But through all of it, the meetings, the restructuring, the victories, one question remained unanswered. What about Daniel? They'd been separated for 3 months, living apart, communicating through carefully polite text messages, attending therapy individually. Daniel sent updates. Started therapy. Dr. Weinstein seems good. Had a breakthrough about my father issues. I'm really working on this, I promise. Kayla responded with equal care. Glad therapy is helping. Take your time. Focus on yourself. But she didn't invite him home. Didn't suggest couples counseling. Didn't commit to anything beyond cordial distance. She was surprised to discover she liked living alone, liked coming home to a quiet house where no one needed her to be smaller, liked making decisions without considering someone else's ego, liked being fully, completely herself without translation. Sarah noticed. You sound happier. I sound lonely, Kayla corrected. Those aren't mutually exclusive. In late February, Daniel asked if they could meet. Not at the house, neutral territory. They chose a coffee shop in West Hartford, far enough from both their worlds to feel safe. He looked different, thinner, but healthier somehow, more present in his own skin. I quit my job, he said after they'd settled with their coffees. What? I quit. 3 weeks ago. I'm starting my own consulting firm, small business accounting. I was hiding in that big firm, feeling safe but stuck. You inspired me. Daniel, let me finish. He leaned forward, intense in a way she'd rarely seen. I spent 3 months in therapy learning about myself, about how I was raised to measure my worth by my career, about how marrying you should have been the best thing that ever happened to me. But instead, I felt threatened because you were successful and I was just adequate. You're not just adequate. I am, though, at least in my family's eyes. Jordan was the heir apparent. I was the backup plan. And instead of building my own identity, I tried to make myself feel bigger by keeping you small. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry, Kayla. I'm so fucking sorry. She reached across the table, touching his hand. I know you are. I've read everything about you, every article, every interview, every conference speech posted online. I watched your keynote from Boston, twice. I'm learning who you actually are. And Kayla, he looked up, eyes shining. I'm in awe. You're extraordinary. And I wasted 4 years not seeing it. Can you see it now? Really see it? Without feeling diminished? I'm trying. I had this moment in therapy where Dr. R. Weinstein asked me, why does your wife's success have to mean anything about you? And I didn't have an answer. It doesn't. It never did. I just made it about me because I'm insecure. That's growth, Kayla said softly. Admitting that. But is it enough? He gripped her hand. Is it enough for you to give us another chance? I don't expect you to move back in together tomorrow. I don't expect forgiveness. Can we try? Can we build something new? Kayla had asked herself this question 1,000 times over 3 months. Could she love him again? Could she trust him to see her? Could she risk being small again? I don't love you the way I used to, she said, and watched him flinch. But that might not be a bad thing. I loved you desperately, the way you love someone when you need them to validate you. That wasn't healthy for either of us. What do you love now? I love myself. I love my work. I love the life I've built. She paused. I could love you again. Differently. If we built something based on honesty instead of assumptions. What would that look like? Couples therapy, real conversations about our careers, our goals, our fears, no more performing roles. She looked at him steadily. And Daniel, if your family ever dismisses me again, ever, you shut it down immediately. No hesitation, no politeness. You defend me like I matter more than their approval. You do matter more. Then prove it, not with words, with actions. He nodded slowly. Okay, I can do that. I want to do that. And if you can't? Kayla asked. If we try this and you realize you can't handle being married to someone more successful than you, then I tell you honestly and we end it with respect. No dragging it out. No making you small to make me comfortable. It wasn't a promise of forever. It wasn't even a promise of success. But it was honest, and honesty was a better foundation than they'd ever had before. Okay, Kayla said. Let's try. The Lewis estate looked the same, but everything else had changed. Kayla arrived with Daniel, who insisted on carrying the pies, bourbon pecan again because some traditions were worth keeping. But this time, when Donna greeted them at the door, she hugged Kayla first. "I'm so glad you're here, both of you." The gathering was smaller, just immediate family plus Jessica Martinez, who'd been invited as a colleague and friend. The seating was mixed, no segregation by gender. The conversations flowed naturally across the table. Richard carved the turkey with less ceremony than before, more humility. When he raised his glass for the traditional toast, his words were different. "A year ago, I stood at this table and said something unforgivable." His voice was steady but weighted with remorse. "I said women didn't belong in business discussions. Today, I want to say what's true. My daughter-in-law saved my company, saved 240 jobs, and taught me that growth requires letting go of the past. Thank you, Kayla, for being bigger than I deserved." "To Kayla," Donna raised her glass, "who showed us all that success isn't zero-sum, that lifting each other up makes everyone stronger." Everyone drank. Kayla stood, surprising herself. "I learned something too," she said. "I learned that hiding your light doesn't protect you, it just makes you invisible. I learned that demanding respect is different from demanding revenge. And I learned that families can evolve if everyone's willing to do the work." She looked around at the table, at Richard, humbled but healing, at Donna, vibrant with her new business, at Jordan, confident in his competence, at Amanda, excited about her new marketing director position, at Jessica, thriving and healthy and whole, at Daniel, who'd spent the past year becoming the husband he'd promised to be. "Thank you for being willing to change," Kayla said. "It took courage." After dinner, the business discussion happened at the table, with everyone participating. Jordan presented Q4 numbers, Lewis Apex's best quarter in 5 years. Marcus outlined expansion plans. Even Amanda contributed ideas for the marketing rebrand. Kayla caught Daniel's eye across the table. He was smiling, genuinely proud, not threatened. He'd been the one to suggest she invite her own team to Christmas dinner. He'd been the one to brag to his friends about his wife's company. He'd been the one to shut down a colleague who made a joke about being Mr. Kayla Bennett. "Damn right I am," Daniel had said. "And I'm lucky as hell." Later, after dessert, Kayla found herself on the back patio with Donna. The older woman had brought out 2 glasses of wine, her own consulting business files under her arm. "I have a client question," Donna said. "If you have a minute?" They spent 20 minutes discussing supply chain logistics for a small manufacturer Donna was advising, professional to professional, peer to peer. When the conversation wound down, Donna touched Kayla's arm. "I was thinking about my younger self, the woman who gave up her dreams, and I realized she would have been so proud of you, proud that women like you exist, that you didn't give up." "I almost did," Kayla admitted.
"I can't believe you're doing this. Just
so
leave."
many times.
Fine.
But you didn't.
I don't
and
want to be
that
here
changed
anyway.
everything. For all of us. Jessica
Your
appeared in
behavior
the
tonight is
doorway.
completely unacceptable.
"Mrs. Bennett,
You have ruined
sorry
this
to
dinner.
interrupt, but
Oh,
Henderson
look at her.
just
She's gonna
emailed.
cry like
They
a
want to
child.
discuss
How
expanding our
pathetic.
contract into the Midwest region." Kayla stood, already pulling out her phone. "How big?" $15 million additional annually. Business never stopped, but Kayla didn't mind. This was her life, complex, demanding, successful, and for the first time, she didn't have to hide any of it. Late that night, back in the home she now shared with Daniel again, Kayla sat in her office. The office that was no longer a secret, no longer a shameful hiding place, but a symbol of everything she'd built. Daniel appeared in the doorway with 2 mugs of tea. "Room for one more?" "Always." He'd set up his own desk in here 6 months ago. Now they worked side by side most evenings, each focused on their own projects, but together in the silence. Partners in all senses. "What are you working on?" he asked, settling into his chair. "Forbes wants to do a follow-up profile. The CEO who transformed her family business. They want the whole story." "Are you going to tell them? About Thanksgiving last year?" Kayla considered. "Yes, but not as revenge. As a case study in organizational change. How unconscious bias affects business decisions. How recognizing and addressing those biases can save a company. Your family won't love being the cautionary tale. They'll survive. And honestly, I think Richard would approve. He's been giving talks at business schools about his mistakes. What I got wrong about leadership is his most requested speech. Daniel smiled. Who would have thought? People can change, Kayla said, if they want to badly enough. Is that what happened with us? He looked at her seriously. Did I change enough? She thought about the past year, the couple's therapy sessions where they'd fought and cried and slowly rebuilt trust, the moments when Daniel had to check his ego and she had to risk being vulnerable, the gradual, imperfect process of becoming partners instead of performers. You're changing, she said. We both are. That's what matters. Her phone buzzed, a text from Jennifer. Boss, the Forbes reporter wants to know if there's a lesson in your story. What should I tell her? Kayla thought about it, fingers hovering over the keyboard. What was the lesson? That success is the best revenge? That women have to fight for recognition? That families are complicated? All of it. None of it. Something simpler. She typed, tell her the lesson is this. You don't need permission to be successful. You just need the courage to let people see who you already are. That's good, Daniel said, reading over her shoulder. But maybe add something about how being seen requires other people to be willing to look. Kayla smiled and revised. You don't need permission to be successful. You just need the courage to let people see who you already are. And sometimes you need to demand that they look. She sent it and closed her laptop, turning to Daniel. Remember last year, when I walked out of Thanksgiving dinner? How could I forget? I thought my marriage might be over. I thought I'd have to choose between being myself and being loved. And now? Now I know those were never opposites. She reached for his hand. You don't love me despite my success. You love me inclusive of it. That's the difference. I'm still learning, he admitted. Sometimes I catch myself feeling competitive or threatened, and I have to consciously push back against it. I know, but you do push back. That's what matters. They sat in comfortable silence, hands linked, 2 laptops closed for the night. Outside, Connecticut winter pressed against the windows. Inside, they'd built something warm and honest and real. What are you thinking? Daniel asked. Kayla looked around her office, the awards on the wall, the CEO nameplate on her desk, the family photos she'd added over the past year, photos of her and Daniel at business events, photos of her receiving industry recognition with Daniel in the audience, visibly proud, photos of both of them, equal, seen, whole. I'm thinking that a year ago, I was the invisible CEO, and now I'm just the CEO, visible, valued, and finally seen for exactly who I've always been. Who you've always been, Daniel repeated. I'm sorry it took me so long to see you. You see me now. That's what counts. She stood, pulling him up with her. Come on, it's late. Let's go to bed. As they left the office, Kayla paused at the door, looking back one more time. Tomorrow, she'd take another call with Forbes. She'd review the Midwest expansion proposal. She'd handle the daily challenges of running 2 companies. She'd live her extraordinary, complex, demanding life. But tonight, she was just Kayla, CEO, wife, woman who'd refused to stay invisible. The unemployed housewife had always been a fiction they wrote. The powerful woman was the truth she lived. They just needed to open their eyes to see it. And now they all saw clearly. When Kayla Bennett Lewis walked out of her in-laws' Thanksgiving dinner last year, she wasn't just leaving a family gathering. She was stepping out of the shadows and into her full identity as CEO of Apex Logistics Solutions, a company she'd been running for 6 years while her family thought she was unemployed. The revelation sparked a transformation that extends far beyond one family's awakening. I spent 3 years being invisible, Bennett Lewis tells me from her Hartford office, where she now runs both Apex and Lewis Apex Manufacturing, the company she acquired and turned around. Not because I was hiding, but because people refused to see me. There's a difference. That difference matters. In the year since her story became public, Bennett Lewis has become an unlikely spokesperson for a generation of women whose competence is consistently underestimated. The numbers tell part of the story. Apex Logistics Solutions grew 40% in the past year. Lewis Apex Manufacturing posted record profits and zero employee turnover. Jessica Martinez, the woman whose sexual harassment lawsuit exposed the company's discrimination, is now a senior logistics coordinator at Apex and speaks publicly about workplace rights. But the transformation goes deeper. Richard Lewis, the patriarch who once declared that women don't belong in business discussions, now gives speeches at business schools titled "What I Got Wrong About Leadership." His wife, Donna, runs a successful consulting practice helping women over 50 return to the workforce. "My daughter-in-law didn't just save a company," Richard Lewis tells me, his voice heavy with emotion. "She saved a family by forcing us to evolve. That's not comfortable. Evolution never is, but it's necessary." Bennett Lewis's story has resonated because it's not unique. Thousands of women have reached out to her, sharing their own experiences of being underestimated, dismissed, redirected from their ambitions. "The message I want to send," she says, "is that you don't need to wait for permission to be successful. You don't need to make yourself small so others feel comfortable. You just need the courage to take up the space you've earned." When I ask about her marriage, which went through a public separation before reconciling, she's characteristically direct. "Daniel had to decide if he could handle being married to someone more successful than him. I had to decide if I could trust someone who'd been blind to me for so long. We're both still deciding, every day. That's what honest partnership looks like." As our interview concludes, a notification pops up on Bennett Lewis's phone. Another acquisition offer, her third this month. Companies want her to replicate the Lewis Apex turnaround. "I'll consider them," she says, already reviewing the details. "But only if they're serious about change, real change. I'm not interested in putting Band-Aids on broken systems. I want to rebuild them." It's a fitting motto for a woman who didn't just transform a company or a family, but herself. From invisible to undeniable, from dismissed to essential, from the secret CEO to the woman who refused to stay hidden. "I was always here," she says as I'm leaving. "They just finally learned how to look.